Mr. Superintendent, thank you so much for making time for us.
Sure, thanks for having me on.
So we saw a lot of movement happen really quickly on the Department of Education. Lawmakers and the governor moved so that it's no longer overseen by the superintendent, your office,
Yes.
but now the governor of California moving forward. What's your response to all of this?
To be honest, I don't think it's a bad idea when a governor wants to be involved in education. And quite frankly, most states have an executive over education who is appointed by the governor. So it's not a bad thing. But it should have been done by taking it to the voters, right? The state superintendent position is approved by the voters. And I just think that would have been a cleaner way to do it. I'm concerned that this proposal has been created and it has not offered a single outcome or metric for how it will improve student performance. And it has weakened the existing state superintendent position. And so it's interesting, their premise was that they were trying to streamline all these layers of government. It seems to me that by not getting rid of the one thing and creating this other thing, they essentially just created another layer of decision making in the education sector.
You're one of our first interviews on this since this proposal passed. And again, it passed quickly.
Yeah.
It was put into writing last Friday.
Yeah.
It was passed on Monday. There really were no public hearings just to flesh out this one topic. Is that okay?
Well, it meets the requirements of the law, but is it the best way, to talk about a complex process? No. Now, in fairness, there have been some hearings in the education committees in the Assembly, in the Senate. But again, I think that this is a process that a measure of this magnitude, I think either you put it to the voters or you put it through a traditional bill process and let it go through the legislative hearing process and get approval by two houses, and then the governor signs it.
The governor told me over the phone last week that he would not sign the state budget without this being approved by lawmakers.
Well, there you have it.
What's your response to that?
That tells you that lawmakers knew that the only way they're going to get the other things that they wanted in the budget is that they had to concede on this measure and on it being in the budget process.
I know when we last spoke about this proposal, which the governor, from his standpoint, he did pitch this in January. Since then, what have your conversations been like with lawmakers and the governor?
Most lawmakers that I've spoken with have said that they didn't like the proposal. They didn't understand it and they didn't like it. I've actually never had a real conversation with the governor. He's mostly spoken to me through his staff on this. We've exchanged a few text messages. He knows that I question why do it and why do it now and what is the intent behind it. Look, in fairness, I think this governor has done more for education than any governor in modern history. He's put more in spending on more programs than we've seen in modern times. This seems to be a change of direction from what I've seen from him. I've known this governor for a long time. We've been allies. We've worked together for more than 2 decades, and I have deep respect for him. But I couldn't disagree more on the manner in which this new proposal has been crafted, and it really does decimate the state superintendent position. I feel bad for the person who will be the next state superintendent. It has essentially taken away anything that they might have function over and relegates them to serving on 3 boards in the state of California.
The Republican running, I know, Sanjay Shah has been very outspoken. She's upset. Have you spoken to Democrat Richard Barrera about this?
I have seen some of Sonia Shah's posts, and she thinks that this position was crafted directly towards her, and I don't think anybody was thinking about her. And I'll be honest, I think that for her to be the state superintendent, she's a very dangerous person. She has threatened and bullied students in our state. And that's not someone who should be the state superintendent. I've spoken with Richard Barrera about it in the sense that, I'm concerned for him if he becomes the state superintendent about how he will carry out his policies. There are 1,500 staff who work at the Department of Education. And without access to many of those staff, it's hard to carry out a vision and a platform for helping a big state with 1,000 school districts. And so we've spoken in that respect, and we've talked about ways that he might still be able to get his work done, even with these drastic changes.
Do you think that there is a lane to talk to whoever the next governor may be about this, to roll this back? I mean, do you think that Governor Newsom is this powerful and this is probably going to be the way that it is?
I think that this is the way it's going to be. I do think that, whoever becomes the person appointed by the governor, I will also talk with them and try to assist them if they're going to be running the department. It's unusual. It's different than what people think. And I'm happy to share any experiences that I've had that might help that person. Quite frankly, I wish that the people who wrote the research and the people who dreamed this up in the governor's office had talked to me about it and asked me about what I saw as the pros and cons. I'd have been happy to share that.
So you were completely left out of this process?
Yes.
As the state superintendent for the last 8 years, you were not involved in this major change in your office's makeup.
That's right. This is how it went down. Hey, the governor is interested in making this change. You're both leaving office. Figured this is a good time to do it. I saw a few, schematics of what it might look like. The governor's never spoken to me directly about that. I don't think that's the way you conduct making a change of this nature. And having said that, I'm willing to talk to the person who the next governor appoints to oversee the Department of Education, to assist them in any way that I can. But that's a different job than leading education in this state. That's a different job. And I wish that for all the time we're spending talking about this measure, we were talking about real things that we know will make a difference for helping kids in our state, like making sure they learn to read by 3rd grade, like the 5-year plan that I've written and that I'm raising money for to make sure we have more dyslexia screening, more tutoring programs, more training in phonics and the science of reading, things that are proven to help kids and to help California break through to the next level over the next several years.
In the very brief time that lawmakers did discuss this
Yes.
over the last week, they pointed to a century worth of studies
Yeah.
that pointed out that it is essentially hard to hold anyone accountable for some of these education outcomes because of the way that our government is structured.
Not true.
Is that so? There aren't that many studies out there. Is it just the PACE study done by Stanford that they're referring to, do you think, or what do you make of that?
If they'd asked me, I could tell them that when you were the state superintendent, you were accountable for anything in education. If they want to decide who gets blame, it's easy to put that on the state superintendent. I get blamed for traffic. I get blamed for climate change. You name it. If there's an issue, I can't get through a grocery store in this state without someone stopping me saying, can I talk to you about an issue that's facing our school community? And I take that seriously. And I don't tell them, nope, sorry, you got to call your superintendent or your local school board. I tell them, how can we help you? And then I work with that district to address that issue. It seems to me they're just looking for someone to blame when they say that, rather than thinking about solutions. Let's find solutions. And so for them to create a system that doesn't have outcomes or metrics tied to it for student performance, seems to me all they've done is just move the boxes from one side of the desk to another. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue working on things that are going to make a difference for helping our kids, making sure more kids graduate, making sure that more kids are ready to enter the workforce. I raise private money to make sure our kids will have access to an internship, a paid internship in a STEAM-related field. We have students in Los Angeles County who will be learning STEAM. We have students in places like Oakland who will be learning STEAM. We have to make sure our students are ready for the jobs of tomorrow. I just don't see how this new proposal does anything to move the needle for our students in our state.
Just shifting gears just very broadly, I know
Okay.
you have 6 months left
I do,
in this
yeah.
office. What's next for Tony Thurmond?
It's a great question. Listen, I love the state. The people of California have allowed me to serve as an elected official for 18 years. Someone who comes from my walk of life doesn't normally get that opportunity. The son of immigrants. I lost my only parent, my mom, when I was 6 years old. I was raised in poverty on public assistance. free lunches, food stamps, and government cheese. And in spite of all of that, I've been given the opportunity to serve and to make a difference in our community, and I'm grateful for that. I didn't win in my election to become governor, but I put everything into it, and I didn't make a contingency plan. I believe when you run for something, you put everything into it, and you give it all you have. And it didn't work out the way I hoped, but I'm not going to run for any other offices. I ran for governor out of intention because it is the office that has the most influence over what happens in our state by virtue of being able to set a budget. And that didn't work out for me. And so I will find another way to contribute. But as it relates to this proposal and the framers of the proposal saying that people needed to have clarity about who makes the decisions in education, that is so disingenuous. Anyone who works in education knows that ultimately it's the governor and the legislature who make all the decisions. He or she who controls the budget ultimately controls the decision making. And so, it remains to be seen where this is going to go. I've already reached out to some of the governor's team to say, let's get together and figure out where there might be gaps and how do we minimize any disruptions as this thing gets implemented, because it's getting implemented in January.
Right.
It's right around the corner.
I mean, what does it mean for the school year?
It's created a lot of anxiety for the people who work at the Department of Education. It's created a lot of questions. I think initially for school staff, it will raise questions about, okay, who do we go to? Do we go to the state superintendent or do we go to the governor's appointee? And so, I want to be intentional again. I want us to work through anything that will be a disruption. The trains have to keep moving. We have to make sure that the dollars that go to our schools that the Department of Education allocates get allocated on time. Any other resources that schools need, we have to make sure they get them on time. And I'm going to make sure that that happens. This is a proposal that will raise questions, but it won't be the end of education. It doesn't have the solutions for what we need. And so those of us who know what makes a difference, we're going to keep working on that. And we're not going to stop until we help California kids be prepared for great futures.
Is there anything else you think we should know?
If I don't get the chance, let me just say thank you to the people of California for allowing me to be your state superintendent. Thank you for the questions that you've asked in the course of my time as state superintendent and in the legislature. I am proud to have sponsored the legislation that created the first transitional kindergarten in this state and universal meals, and that got $6 billion for broadband at a time when we learned that 1 million kids in our state didn't have access to a computer or the internet. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but I'm grateful for having been given the opportunity to serve kids who in many ways were just like me, just needed a chance and needed for the promise of education to be made for them so that they'll know that if you just believe in education, you'll have a great life. And so to your viewers, I hope that they will continue to share that message with their children. No matter the difficulties that you face, education will carry you wherever you want to go. And anything that I can do in this role or the next to help our Californians in that way, I'm more than happy to do.
All right. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you.